Welcome to our Energy Edge webinar, The Myths and Realities of Selling Fuel Online. This webinar is geared to take approximately 45 minutes, as we know that your time is valuable. Once we have completed, we will open it up to a short Q&A section, so please hold your questions until then, or you can simply type them in on the right side of your screen. If you notice, about 3/4 of the way down on your GoToMeeting box, there is a smaller box that says chat. Simply type your question in there and I'll keep track of them, and at the end Mark and I will stay on as long as necessary to address all the questions. Let me begin by introducing Mark Stillman. Mark is a founding partner and the president of Energy Engine LLC, as well as our resident expert in business development with a proven track record for building businesses that are rewarded by the marketplace. Mark?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today. Again, these sessions are designed to be fairly informal and hard-hitting and short. We don't want to keep anybody on the phone, but we'd like to have a few takeaways. We had a different topic scheduled for this webinar. We try to do them twice a month, and they're very well attended and quite a lot of interest, but it's hard to prepare and find the time. But coming out of ARI, we were down there for 3 days, and it was always shocking to me, even after many years of doing this with e-commerce and the fuel industry, that there's a lot of myth out there, myths about this concept of selling fuel online. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of unwarranted fears. I'd even go so far that selling fuel online has taken on a sort of polarizing, almost controversial, dare I say, flavor within the industry. So what I wanted to do today was run through some of what we know from our experience, because the Energy Engine has been in the market for 3 years. We enjoy dozens and dozens of dealers as customers, some very, very small, and 2 of our customers are 2 of the largest fuel marketers in North America. So we have a broad scope now, a fairly strong practices list. And prior to the engine, Adrian and my partner, John Vrabel, worked for 10 years in fuel e-commerce. And so we have a very broad experience, but more importantly, a lot of data to back up some of our claims, and not just our claims per se, but the claims of people who are promoting the notion of selling fuel online. So I want to clear the air today on a few things. I want to do it quickly. I want to do it in a hard-hitting way, try to have a little fun. Anybody who's heard me speak before, I like to try to throw facts and figures and fun things out there that are easily substantiated, but a lot of folks don't know those things. It's come from a lot of exhaustive, back-breaking work and a lot of discussions with dealers, some of who are on the phone today, quite frankly. My PowerPoint would work, I'd be all set. There we go. Sorry, technical difficulty. So what we're talking about here is e-commerce. E-commerce is using, obviously, an electronic medium, specifically the internet, to buy or sell something. And in its most banal definition, that's it. We're probably all doing it every day, and many of you are already doing it within your businesses. You have web portals, you have a web designer that builds something onto your back end that allows your customers to check balances, pay bills, order fuel, buy ancillary services perhaps. So you're already in the e-commerce business if that is the case. Granted, not everybody's doing that, but by and large, the whole notion of customer interactivity on the web, that has been proven to be very effective in this industry. A couple of things of note here in terms of e-commerce that are pretty much largely understood in this industry is it's usually a segment of a larger business. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can have a very good retail business with a great storefront and have a great website. Businesses do it every day. They use price as drivers, they use convenience as drivers, whatever those things might be. But in this, in this industry, we're trying to promote the notion that it doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to have online e-commerce driving your business. It can live synchronously with your normal business. I think The second point is enhancing an existing market position. Most dealers, if you're still around in 2014, after the difficulties of the last 10 years, have a fairly strong brand. You're well known, you're able to sustain your customer base to some reasonable limit, but e-commerce will allow you to enhance that market position, spread your reach, take your sort of legacy, hard-fought brand that you have today, and letting electronic medium sort of automate the brand awareness for your company. It doesn't denigrate your brand. It's only going to enhance your brand. I would challenge anybody who's on the phone today to think of a business that got into e-commerce and it was a catastrophe. And most invariably, universally, it has been quite the opposite. So again, the fact that it's polarizing and controversial is mostly because people think that online fuel selling means selling COD cheap to everybody out there who wants to buy a commodity, and that's somehow going to destroy your full service business, when in fact we have lots and lots of data to prove that that not only is not true, but e-commerce and online fuel selling tends to drive people to your full service brand, not the other way around. So we all know what e-commerce is for the most part, but again, there's a couple of key points here. Virtual storefronts, the notion of taking your company onto the web. I don't want to be a critic here, but most oil and propane dealers out there have pretty crummy websites. It amounts to one or both. It's either a static billboard that really has no excitement or jazz to it, and people will click through it in seconds because nothing grabs them, or more often than not, oil and propane dealers feel the need to write massive volumes of content as if somebody's going to take the time to read it. Nobody will. If anybody studies the internet and e-commerce and study your own habits, you're not going to read volumes of information about anything. You're going to skim through and look at the highlights. So when you talk about a virtual storefront for heating oil and propane, one of the first things you can do in terms of e-commerce is just improve the quality, interactivity, and fun of your website. Nobody likes a billboard website anymore. Those days are over. I mean, that was like 15 years ago. If you're not changing your website, using social media on a regular basis, then people are going to stop coming. And if you're using Google Analytics or some of the analytics out there for looking at your site traffic and you're measuring the site traffic, I'm also quite astonished at how many dealers who have sites aren't using analytics to see if that site is working. You'll typically find that you don't have a lot of unique visitors because people come once and never come back. But the third point here is what we try to promote also in terms of the energy engine and e-commerce, the fuel dealers, is that, as you know, people like Google and Amazon, and they love to sell stuff, but really what they're doing is gathering demographic data. It's a data gathering mechanism. The more information you have about your marketplace and the consumers at an intimate level, who are they? What is their email address? What kind of fuel do they use? What are their habits online? We'll talk about that in a minute. Gathering that data makes marketing so much more effective. Marketing today is you call up Warm Thoughts or Prime Media or somebody else, and you kind of give them a profile of your customer. You give them a profile of the marketplace, but that's a swag in the dark a lot. That's a finger in the wind. And then you're forced, because you don't have email addresses or lots of data compiled in a database somewhere through a website, you're doing this sort of guerrilla marketing. You're throwing stuff out there in newspapers and magazines and radio, hoping you're going to reach the right customer, but you don't know if you're doing that or not. On the web, with the gathering of data, you know you are. So very quickly, as a roundup of e-commerce, it has to be an enhancement to your brand. You have to think of it that way, and it has to be focused on marketing, not just selling fuel. The value of the marketing and the cost savings of that is probably more important than selling fuel. So if you stand around Airy like we did for 3 days and talk to people about online e-commerce, as I said in the invitation, it's either the beginning of the apocalypse, that somehow if we sell fuel online, we're going to lose the connection with the customer. We're not going to have that intimacy and that community feel and that touchy-feely experience, and that customer is just going to wander around from one e-commerce vendor to the other. Some people think that it's, basically the beginning of the end of full service. So not only are we going to lose the contact with a customer by putting them online, that we're going to completely cannibalize our full service business, and eventually our brand will be destroyed, and we're going to end up as an online discounter instead of the company that our grandfathers and great-grandfathers built. It's really, that is not true. That is absolutely unfounded, and that's emotional and alarmist. I don't like to be critical, but I've been in this industry for 20 years. I wasn't born and raised in it. I've worked in a lot of parts of it, had great exposure, and I spent a lot of time doing consumer research in the last few years, especially around e-commerce and around the changing habits of customers, even the advent of natural gas and yada yada. Most of the time, the dramatic negative results that the industry anticipates never happen. It seems like it makes really great conversation for the supplier dinner at Airy, but in the real world, none of this is happening. Anybody who has an online e-commerce site, even someone who has taken a full-service brand and rebranded a COD business online, which is the most dramatic step you can take in e-commerce, would laugh if you told them that all these things were perceived by folks in the industry. They wouldn't even understand it. So we need to sort of break from the hype and move to the reality, as if, selling things online is not the end of the world. If anybody hasn't noticed, everybody is buying everything online. If you can buy groceries online, I'm pretty sure you can buy everything online. This is not groundbreaking thinking. This is taking a proven concept into an industry that has been slow to accept it. The people who are most frustrated are not the dealers or us as people trying to promote this concept. It's the consumer. If you talk to consumers in your marketplace, they'll say, why can't my oil dealer just put an online site up? I don't want to have to call in. They don't want to talk to people anymore. They don't want to talk to their bank. They don't want to talk to anybody. If this industry thinks they can somehow hold on to the phone for the next 10 years, you're going to let a lot of people down. You're going to lose a lot of customers that way. You've got to bend with the wind here in terms of how consumers are doing everything. The world will not end if you have a true e-commerce website up. So I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, and not so much the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but his more recent book called The Third Alternative. I've done a lot of management consulting in my career. In fact, before I came to heating oil and propane, that's what I did for private equity firms. And I used to have this little speech I would give that it's never oil and water, that things can exist together. And if you were to study The Third Alternative from Stephen Covey, you would understand that getting out of your normal paradigm of thinking, breaking the bounds, looking inward at your company and yourself, and saying, am I stuck in a rut? Am I thinking the way my grandfather did because that's how I was taught to think? And am I making choices about my business that are largely that are being done in a vacuum or being done emotionally because I don't want to get out of my comfort zone for fear of breaking something? The third alternative is not about compromise. The whole not oil and water phenomenon is more about synergy. How can I find a way to do this synergistically with my full service business? How do I challenge myself to say, if my customers are online, if Stillman's telling me that in a lot of markets they're demanding and are frustrated with lack of online presence, how does that work with my full service business? How do I make this work? How do I protect my brand and my grandfather's legacy while embracing the future? It's not a choice. You don't have to become an online discounter in lieu of your full service business. We have dozens and dozens of companies in our ranks who have them exist together very easily and have provided incredible growth incredible improvements to the brand, a lot of great feedback from customers. So again, e-commerce is not an outlier. It becomes part of your overall business strategy and gets wound in synergistically, not to use a silly word, but it really is. It does become part of a bigger plan. I mean, let's face it, trying to grow and market in this industry is incredibly complicated, incredibly expensive. I think customer acquisition costs right now in the industry are around $500 to $700 if you count the marketing and sales and incentives and all the things that go into that. And look at where margins have gone and how long it will take for that customer to be profitable on an 850-gallon-a-year usage. Not only do current marketing methods not work, they're so expensive to acquire a customer the old-fashioned way, using advertising and sales reps, that you really almost can't afford to do it at 50-cent, 60-cent margins, and never mind 40-cent margins like there are in some markets. So e-commerce is not just a way to do things differently, it's a way to market more effectively and far, far less expensive. Should you be online? We get that question a lot. I know it sounds like an ironic question to ask, but hey, should I be online? And I kind of want to giggle when I hear that, because I'm thinking, why wouldn't you be online? I mean, everybody in the world is online. They're probably online 5 seconds after they ask me that question. People are doing research. People are buying things. And we're talking, these numbers are 2 years old. It's probably up around 90% of the people now who are doing research before they buy everything. Senior citizens are on the web at incredible rates. So when the dealer tells me, well, our customers don't go on the internet, I don't know where you're getting that information, but that is patently inaccurate. They are on the web. You think they're not, but they are. So online sales continue to outpace, obviously we know that. Retail sales are falling far behind online sales. So again, are we a retail business? No, we're in a commodity business with a value-add proposition that makes it a non-commodity. But it's still something that people are looking at online, investigating, researching. I think the biggest thing of all, if you ask our customers who ask their customers all the time, because part of our system has a survey mechanism in it, it's always about convenience. Somebody coined this kitschy line once. I think it was a customer of ours that said, I came for the price, but I stayed for the convenience. I want to order oil and do things on my time. I pay my bills at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm pretty sure Mabel's not in the office to call that time. And frankly, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want it to be convenient. I want to pay with my credit card. I don't want to deal with bills coming in the mail. So convenience is the #1 driver of internet purchases, and certainly within fuel oil, that is what we have seen. Again, if you have a good e-commerce site, and let me just try to draw a distinction here real quickly. A lot of you have web portals, and whether it's a Deswin or somebody else that's out there that does a great job, we certainly applaud what they've done in the industry. But a portal is not e-commerce marketing. It feels like it is, but it's not. It's because a portal is designed to essentially serve your existing customers, have them sign up for programs, pay their bills, check their balance. Most people don't allow them to order oil or service. Some people do. But that is not marketing. That's a one-way interactivity. You're not prompting them to do anything. You're putting a site up, and they're prompting themselves to do something. So in terms of e-commerce marketing, you do the prompting. A true e-commerce marketing site, such as the Energy Engine, is two-way interactive. First of all, it's SEO-driven. So it's making people find you through the search engines. It's driving them to you in the language both of the site and of the metadata, which we can talk to if you ever want to go into more in detail about how SEO works. But more importantly, it's tracking behavior. We have behavioral marketing. So as people are doing things on the e-commerce engine site, if they're clicking in, if they're registering, if they're coming and going, it's tracking their activity. If they register with an email to get a price quote, even if they don't buy anything, it will trigger emails of your design So as they're shopping or registering or looking or investigating this new online site, they're being prompted with notes from you in an automated fashion. And then once you have that database built, some of our customers have thousands and thousands and thousands of email addresses, then marketing and mining and cross-selling that information becomes very, very effective and very, very inexpensive. So really what e-commerce does, unlike a portal, is attracts interested prospects. People who are doing something online, looking for oil or propane or service or equipment, are going to find you. We know that searches are up. We know that web visits are up. We know that visit duration is up. That's because on a good e-commerce site, there's a reason for them to stay. There's not a book for them to read. There's things for them to do. There's newsletters. There's refer a friend programs. There's any number of things that would keep them on the site. If you look at your existing website today, I can assure you that you don't have 1,000 visits per month to a billboard website. And that's really not that much. We have some customers who are getting 5,000 web visits a month to their website, which is a huge number. And then again, e-list goals. You want those email addresses. So should you be online? Yes. And why would you want to be online? Because it's one damn good marketing tool, and it's very different from a website and a portal. So these are the three things. We talked about it. Don't fear it. Online marketing and selling a fuel is not the end of the world. It's going to lower your operating costs if people are answering the phones less. If you don't carry huge AR balances with e-commerce that is paid for ahead of time, that money's in the bank before you even deliver that fuel. There's really, really reduced SGA expenses for you accountants out there. That's all of the expenses associated with selling something to someone. So it definitely lowers your operating costs. It raises your margins. And believe me, as someone who worked in hedging and buying for a long time, that could be a tough claim to make. But the reason it raises your margins is because if you look at that customer as a one-off, it was cheap to get them, cheap to service them. So on a mini P&L, that customer is more profitable. Obviously, it's blended into your larger business, but on a customer-by-customer basis, they will be more profitable. The margin will be higher. And then you need to know what it takes to run an online business. This is the hardest part of all. Number 3 is the hardest part of all. Is that a lot of people spend. We have a new client who spent $50,000 on a website 2 years ago and came to me because he happens to be my local heating oil provider. I'm a customer of his, full service company. And he said, "Hey, Mark, I know you're part of this Energy Engine and you're part of the Energy Edge advisory business. Why is it that I spent $50,000 and I can't get anybody to get my site?" Because web developers don't care if anybody gets to your site. They want to make it look pretty. They're going to take all the content that you give them. They're going to charge you a fortune to build this thing, but nobody had an SEO discussion. Nobody had an e-commerce discussion. Nobody had an interactivity discussion. They just basically took what you wanted and you spent $50,000 and nobody shows up. That's an all too common theme. 50 is a lot of money, but a lot of people tell me they spend 10, 15, 20, 25,000 on a website. Did it work? And they're always like, "I don't know, but I don't think so. We can't get people to do anything. We do email blasts and nobody shows up." So running an online business is different. You have to be on top of it all the time. You need to find a good partner. Again, I don't like to make these too salesy, but you can't go it alone. E-commerce is not something you can do on your own. It really is best to find someone who can help you through the process, not only with best practices and rollout and brand management and marketing, but with a system. You need technology. You can't turn your existing site into an e-commerce site without an incredible amount of money. So you need a good partner. So the don't fear it part, this is one of the greatest parts of my work, because those of you who do know me, and this is Energy Engine is a sister company to a company called the Energy Edge Advisory Group, which is a consulting firm within the energy space, both on the dealer side and the vendor, mostly technology side. One of the best parts about my job is when we do a proposal for you as a dealer, we have demographic data, probably some of the best demographic data out there from the census, of heated oil homes by county and even down, I can even get it to the zip code level. And when people see the size of their market versus their market share, they're stunned. It's unbelievable how stunned people are. I had this experience with the $50,000 website guy, poor bastard. You know, he says, well, you know, we're one of the biggest companies around here. I don't know if there's a lot of upside for us. He had 5,800 customers in a market that had 53,000 heating oil homes in his service area. The area is just that he covers, not a broader area. So here's a guy thinking he's got the market locked up. He's got 9% of the market, and he's telling me that there's no upside. If you would look at all of these surveys that we do for customers on a zip code basis or county basis by your specific service area, I don't think there's one person out there that would be shocked by how small their market share really is. And they always say the same thing. Well, if I've got 5,000 out of 50, why can't I grow my business? And I'm thinking, well, that's a question you should be asking yourself. It doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of competitors out there, yes, but there's a lot of customers out there too. So if you're not getting them, you're not trying hard enough, or you're not where they are. So one of those things is obviously good websites, but not many of the dealers can get business transacted online. Customers want to transact business online. Less than 12% of dealers are able to do that today or are willing to do that. So there is a lot of fear out there. You don't have a big market share, as we don't as an industry. Most dealers don't. I could give you statistics on the dealer count. Here's another sobering little Stillman. I used to call them fun facts until I made a presentation in New Jersey, and somebody told me that they should be called shit facts. Pardon my language. From 2004 to 2010, the volume of heating oil, this is on the heating oil side, went from 6.5 billion gallons a year in the U.S. to 4 billion gallons a year. So massive demand destruction. A lot of that was driven by a huge run-up in prices in 2008, which scared a lot of people off. It also caused them to get massive conservancy mode and burn anything, including their furniture and their library books, for heat. But that's a huge demand destruction. It's down to about 3.9, 3.8, so it's stabilized and leveled off at around 4 billion gallons. The dealer count in 2004 was 4,500 heating oil dealers. The market blows up by 20% in volume, and the dealer count rose to 5,300 last year. So you have a stabilized customer base, but way smaller demand than there was. Yet the dealer count goes up by 25%. It's an uncanny dynamic. But it's out there, which makes people's jobs harder. But it's a buyer's market. The consumer has an infinite number of choices. Essentially, there's way too many dealers. That's a problem that will have to get sorted out over the next 5 years. The way that you can separate yourself from the pack in an over-dealered market is to be really good at marketing. The folks who are really good at marketing are the ones that will thrive. The folks that think they can sit back and wait for the phone to ring are from a different generation. So we talked about lower operating costs. Delivery efficiencies are up. Most on-demand online customers tend to order full average drop sizes, much higher, as we have found, than your typical automatic delivery customer. A lot of that is not anything more than we have tweaked the hell out of our degree day systems. Having worked in the ERP world with ad systems and cargo systems, the people tweak their degree day systems to avoid runouts by anywhere from 20 to 25%. So hence why the average drop size in this industry, although I know people on the phone are going to stomp their feet and say, no, mine's way higher, is about 136 gallons per drop across the industry. If yours is 185, you are in the vast minority. So delivery efficiency is up. We talked about the cash management, administrative stuff, the marketing stuff. Lowering operating costs is obviously a very, very good idea. I don't think anybody would argue that. So what does it take to run an online business? First of all, it takes commitment. The industry, as it stands today, is at a crossroads. It's at a transition. We are used to getting customers easily, keeping them easily, and making money fairly easily. Not that we don't all work our asses off, but it's not that way anymore. It's harder to get customers. It's harder to keep customers. The phone's not just going to ring. They're not going to roll over and be happy forever. And getting new business is enormously expensive. So commitment, first of all, it is a new type of business. You really have to put your shoulder behind it. The first year especially, you have to give it a lot of attention. You have to have somebody be accountable for your online business. Somebody in your organization or yourself has to have their neck in the noose that if we're going to spend $6,000 with the Energy Engine, we better have somebody looking at this to ensure that we're getting our payback and getting the value of it. Because we can confidently say now that we know how big a business can grow around e-commerce multiple times over with multiple customers. So if it's not working where you are, it's because somebody's not managing it. You got to commit to it. You got to follow a roadmap. When I talk about choosing a good partner, whether it's Energy Engine or another e-commerce partner, we have a roadmap for success. We know what it takes to build a strong online presence for your business. A lot of folks try to do it on their own, like, well, how hard can it be? I'll turn on the Energy Engine, I'll put on some SEO, and I'll just sit back and wait for the orders to flood in. That's not how it works. We actually landed one of the very largest customers in the U.S. this year, and they have internal marketing resources, but none of these internal marketing resources are web marketing people. They're just sort of traditional marketing people that are sort of, going to permeate this industry. So they said, no, we got it. One of the most abysmal launch failures that we have ever seen at Energy Engine. And this is a company, if I told you the name, that you'd be shocked. This has got a marketing department with lots of people in it, and they fell flat on their face with the engine until we had to step in and put them back on the road. This is not something you can find your way on. You need expertise. And then the rookie mistakes. Like I said, one of the rookie mistakes is I got this. And the other rookie mistake is setting up your business rules ahead of time. How is this going to fit into my brand strategy and my business strategy? That is not ad hoc as you go. You have to get that done ahead of time. So here's the biggest question. If when you get this, I'll send you this PowerPoint. When you get it, this is the one slide you really need to consider, is how do I brand this? If I have a full service business and I have a website and I am the minority that has a damn good website, but I know I want to go online and I want to drive traffic, how do I brand it? What do I call it? I'm going to go back to front. We have had very little success with number 2 and number 3. A hybrid brand, meaning somehow your brand and this other brand are linked, but it's not an obvious way from a naming convention perspective, rarely ever works. A whole new brand, if you're ABC Fuel and you want to open DEF online, typically doesn't work. And I was talking to my partner this morning, sort of debriefing on ARI and prospects in this call today. Really, number 1 is the only one that has worked consistently. Using your heritage brand, not being afraid to use a brand that you have built for 5 or 6 generations maybe. Why wouldn't you leverage that brand? That is, number 1 is the way to go. Back to my poor friends in this big giant company who thought they knew everything. They went to a brand new brand. They used number 2. And all they have now, we're moving them back to their heritage brand. We're moving them away from this new brand that they had, and it's working. So again, back to the fear of damaging your heritage brand with this online, perhaps discount, at least some discount perspective, is not going to hurt your brand. You've got to leverage your brand. People won't find you otherwise, or they won't trust you. You'll think you're just another Johnny-come-lately type of person. So, sort of wrapping it all up here, what do you need? Well, first of all, you need a good system. And again, I like to sell on these because I do believe we have the best system out there. I know that we have by degree more customers than anybody else out there who's truly in the e-commerce marketing business. You need a platform. You need a piece of software. You're not going to turn your existing website into an e-commerce platform. It would be way, way too expensive. If you looked at how sophisticated the Energy Engine was in terms of the back-end operational functions, even just the behavioral marketing piece, what they call push technology. So as a customer is knocking around the site, it's tracking them and sending them one of a half a dozen letters that you design around a certain behavior. That functionality alone would make a web developer in your town's head spin around backwards. So you need a good platform. It has to be fully automated. There can't be a manual nature. A lot of times people have websites now that they take payments or take orders. All it's doing is creating an email, and the woman in the office or the guy in the office still has to do the manual work. That didn't do anything for you. It gave your customer convenience, but it created more work for you. There's no reason to be on the web if you're going to make things more expensive. It's completely counterintuitive. A realistic business plan. Again, we have 12 years of best practices around e-commerce fuel delivery. We can tell you, based upon your market size, what you can expect, the financial results to aim for. We can build that pro forma for you. A good partner can build that. A bad partner would give you a piece of software and say, hey, you're in the e-commerce business, and you say, well, how well should I be doing? And they'd be like, I don't know. It's your job. It's your business. We don't know your business. We can do those pro formas. A partner who can make it happen. One of the reasons e-commerce is a little bit scary is the first place people have tended to go in the last 10 years is their web developer. Or maybe, potentially, their marketing company. And I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Warm Thoughts and Prime Media and Consumer Focus. They all do an awesome job, and we have good relationships with them. But they might not have the expertise around, or certainly the platform, to do true e-commerce. You know, pay-per-click and those kind of things are not solving the problem. It's still relying upon your website. And it's not interactive, and it's not really transacting business, and it's not really automated. So good system, good plan, good partner. I think that's pretty much, you know, that should be the guiding principles of any initiative you have with technology. So I think in closing and wrapping this up, we're at about 40 minutes here. You know, a lot of the fear of e-commerce and the fear of the destruction of the full-service business and fear of the destruction of your brand and whatnot are largely unfounded. This last slide here really talks about the fact that what we've seen is the exact opposite. First of all, we're driving site traffic. We're getting customers engaged. We're helping customers gather demographic customer data. We're helping them market inexpensively. We're getting to where people are on the web. We are putting up a storefront for you that's fun and interactive and valuable to the consumer, and they come back. Guess what? None of your full-service customers are leaving and running over to the discount business. In fact, it goes the other way. Almost invariably, our customers will tell us that they've grown from 1% to 5% on full service through the on-demand site. So it actually works in reverse, because it's very interesting. If you look at some of our customers' websites, there's always a link to the premium brand site, because these sites coexist together. Your existing site doesn't have to go away. It can, but it doesn't have to. And we are careful with our language. We've been at this for a while. And convenience is great, but people know that when they shop online, they get great information. They typically get good prices, but it's no frills. For those of you old enough to know People's Express Airlines, right? You get on board, they give you a paper bag with a cookie in it, and they stick you in a seat somewhere. You know, it is no frills to be on the web. And the skin in the game with the customers, they accept that no frills. But if in their face there's a mention of premium service from ABC Oil with budget plans and automatic delivery and price protection caps, multi-fuel discounts, and there's a link, visit our full-service site. Most people like to upsell. They like the better thing. They don't want to buy the inexpensive thing. They want to go up the food chain. So that's what we're seeing. We're finding that the full-service customer base. Without further belaboring the point, I just wanted to, again, share a few thoughts this morning, a few facts, get you thinking about your online business, get you thinking about it differently, challenging you to look for that third alternative. That the old-fashioned way is great, and I think it'll be around for a long time. And having a website is great, but the current iterations of websites that are out there for most heating oil companies and propane companies are not doing the job. You need something better, something more in tune with consumers, and challenge yourselves if it's okay to do that. How would it work? Just in the spirit of full disclosure, I always do this because lots of times when I don't do this, people call me up and say, well, that's great, Stillman, but what is it, like 50 grand to do this? It isn't. It's right out of the gate. It's anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000. $5,900 is for the software. It's a cloud application, any device, anywhere. You can reach it, and your customers can reach it from any internet connection. It has its own SQL Server database, so you're compiling this information. The customer doesn't have to re-register every single time. So the application itself is $5,900 per year. It's a cloud-based subscription. Installation fees vary wildly depending on how much work Adrian and the IT team need to do. But people are always stunned to realize that for $6,000 or $8,000, they can have this incredibly sophisticated e-commerce platform. It's not a really expensive date. If you look at the ROI, at about 175 deliveries off of your online site, you're paying for it. And we have customers who are doing 400 deliveries a week on their online site. New business. So ROI is not even a conversation to have. It's almost a matter of how much money can we make, how much can we spread our footprint. At $6,000 a year, I challenge you to find anything out there that can deliver this kind of value for that kind of price tag. So it's not an expensive date. It would be completely idiotic for a company like us to come into the heating oil and propane business with e-commerce software to drive down cost and then have a really expensive application. People would laugh in our face. We do the same thing that you're going to do. We use a lot of technology, we leverage really good partners, and we keep the cost down. We don't have 50 people sitting in a room somewhere waiting for the phone to ring. So we practice what we preach, and the benefit is dealers getting in, very low barrier to entry on the cost side. So it's not the end of the world, it's the beginning of the world. This is the new world. It's not expensive to get into it, but it can be a little complicated, and that's where companies like Energy Engine come in. We're new experts in this industry. We're helping folks in a new frontier and doing it well. So step back today, look at your business, look at that third alternative, give it some thought, and then if you have further questions, you can give me a call or Adrian a call or request a full demo of the product and go from there. So thank you for your time. I'm 43 minutes, which I think is a record for me. So, excuse me, 53 minutes. So Adrian, back to you.
Okay, great. As always, Mark, you seem to have nailed most of the questions that have already come in. One of the questions that has come in that I'd like you to address is, if we're interested in the engine, what is the next step?
Okay, so the next step would be to, go to the website, ENERGYENGINEUS.com. It's on this PowerPoint, which Adrian will send to all of you who are on the call today. It's a nice little takeaway. Click on the link for a demo, and Adrian will get a note, or I will get a note, or somebody in the team will get a note, and we'll schedule a demo. So the next steps would be, if you want to see the product and how it works, and behavioral marketing and SEO, and how people place orders, and what the customer experience is like, and we have an analytics dashboard built right into the application so you can track your web performance right there as a manager. It's a very elegant application, very intuitive. See a demo. If between now and the demo you have questions about what I talked about today and how it might fit into your brand and whether it's even worth pursuing, then you can reach me through the website. My email address is on our website. So feel free to reach out to me or Adrian with questions. But I would do a demo. It takes about 30 minutes. Adrian does an amazing sort of round-the-world tour from the customer perspective and your perspective. I can fill in the blanks on the costs and how it affects marketing and operations. Again, it's 30 minutes well spent. So do it. Request a web demo.
Okay, great. And of course, you know, the people who have asked for a presentation, Mark has already offered that up. So I guess, as always, Mark seems to know the questions that come in and answers them before I even give them to him. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Mark, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time this morning. As Mark mentioned, you will be receiving an email with me with instructions on how to request a more personalized demo if you want, or how to contact us should you have any additional questions. So again, thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.